Hi there. Let's talk about the US operation against Venezuela in the context of great power competition. As we all know that the United States has indeed carried out a direct operation targeting Venezuela's political leadership. And that shouldn't be understood primarily as a Latin American development. Rather, it should be analyzed as part of the broader dynamics of great power competition. And that's why this episode is not fundamentally about Venezuela itself, nor is it principally about regime change in the classical sense. It is instead about how power is exercised, signaled, and enforced in an increasingly multiple international system. Traditionally, United States of America interventions abroad were framed in terms of regime change, democratization, or responses to direct security threats. And what appears to be different in this case, in this Venezuelan case, is the reported focus on the individual leader rather than on the institutional structure of the state. And the alleged targeting of Maduro suggests a shift toward what can be described as leader-centric coercion. And in this model, the individual leader becomes the primary pressure point rather than the regime as a whole. And this shift matters for several reasons. First, it allows coercive signaling without the cost of occupation or long-term governance. And the second one, it avoids the political and military burdens associated with nation building. And the third one, it enables the demonstration of escalation dominance while maintaining strategic flexibility. In short, this is power projection without state reconstruction. Venezuela is not a great power, nor is it a decisive regional hegemon. So why does it matter? I mean, the answer lies in symbolism rather than material capability. Venezuela has openly resisted US pressure, endured extensive sanctions, and sustained political and economic ties with China and Russia. In the context of great power politics, such cases acquire disproportionate significance. And the primary concern for a hegemon is rarely the strength of a defined state. It is the precedent that defiance establishes. If one state can resist sustained pressure and survive, others may calculate that they can do the same. And from that perspective, the principal audience of such an operation is not Caracas. It's Beijing, Moscow, and more broadly, the global South. And the signal to China is that economic engagement does not automatically translate into security guarantees for aligned regimes. And also the signal to Russia is that political alignment does not ensure leader immunity. And the signal to smaller states is unambiguous. I mean, strategic hedging against the United States may carry personal risks for political elites. And this is strategic communication conducted through action rather than rhetoric. One of the central paradoxes of multipolarity is that it doesn't eliminate hierarchy. Instead, it redistributes the hierarchy. I mean, as global competition intensifies, great powers tend to tolerate rivalry at the systemic level while enforcing discipline more assertively within their immediate spheres of influence. Latin America has historically been viewed by Washington as a regional privileged strategic interest. And that suggests that even as the global order fragments, regional dominance is being reaffirmed. And this is not a return to Cold War style imperialism. It is better understood as competitive order making under conditions of systemic rivalry. In the short term, leader-centric coercion can produce clear strategic gains, and it demonstrates resolve, it reinforces credibility, and it shifts the costs of resistance from societies to ruling elites. However, the longer-term risks are significant. Norms of sovereignty are weakened, and the likelihood of asymmetric retaliation increases. And also, rival powers are incentivized to deepen cooperation in areas such as, regime protection and elite security. What strengthens deterrence in the short term may paradoxically generate greater instability over time. And this leads to the central analytical question. Is this episode an exceptional signal, or does it represent the normalization of leader targeting in great power rivalry? If such practices become routine, and then international politics may enter a more volatile phase, one in which escalation is faster and restraint is weaker, and leaders themselves are treated as legitimate instruments of coercion. The broader message of this episode is pressure. And that pressure is clear. Regimes may adapt, but leaders are no longer insulated from direct targeting. And that reality tells us a great deal about the direction in which the international system is moving. The United States has, of course, targeted foreign leaders before. And what makes the current case distinctive is not the practice itself, but the strategic context in which it occurs. I mean, in history, in Panama, the United States removed and captured Manuel Noriega through a large-scale military intervention. And the operation succeeded largely because it occurred at the end of the Cold War. I mean, in a moment of near complete US dominance. And there were no rival great powers positioned to context to outcome. And the lesson was straightforward. Leader removal was feasible when power was uncontested. Another case is the Iraq in 2003, and that case demonstrated that removing a leader does not guarantee political order. And also Libya in 2011 reinforced this lesson, showing that decapitation without governance planning can destroy the state itself. These experiences fundamentally reshape US strategic thinking by highlighting the costs of occupation and post-conflict management. And the operation against Osama bin Laden illustrated a more refined logic when a target's strategic value is sufficiently high, sovereignty becomes a secondary consideration. And this case normalized elite-level targeting under specific conditions, even at the cost of diplomatic fallout. Venezuela combines elements of all these precedents, but unfolds in a multipolar environment. There is no occupation. There is no declared regime building project. The target is sitting head of state. And major rival powers are actively present in the background. If confirmed, this would represent the application of leader targeting logic under conditions of active great power competition. In summary, leader removal was effective under unipolarity. Occupation proved strategically costly, and decapitation without governance produced state collapse. Elite targeting challenged sovereignty norms, and Venezuela suggests a new threshold: no occupation, no regime construction, and no assumption of leader immunity. Whether this represents an exception or a new normal will shape the future conduct of great power rivalry and the stability of the international system itself. Thank you for watching and listening.